like different static poses on force plates in many different configurations. He was trying to figure out all the segment masses and all the segment center of masses. Because we could see that this was completely off, so he had these parameters corrected. We did not look into improving the moment of inertia because we didn't have the correct centers, but already this actually did the job and came up with a model that worked in the end, as you will see. We then formulated an optimal control problem, which essentially described the entire movement, and we also picked objective function, which was a combination of minimization of torques, minimization of joint torques, derivatives, and also mechanical work in all the joints. So the result, I will make it quite brief, actually was a fully dynamic motion of the robot, as you can see here. So the robot was standing up from quite challenging conditions for the robot, but it was really using the entire body to support that, as you can see here. So we will now go through the different steps of making it more challenging. So here you see the setting where actually the foot moves forward from one picture to the next, as you can see. And you can also see that the robot needs to be more and more engaged in order to set up. So, yeah, technical issue with the head, so don't look at the head. That's not what we planned, but so the head is not supporting. So here the chair is going down, and then that really takes the robot to the limits. Okay. Just going through that briefly. I mean, of course, we get all the joint trajectories which we then implemented in the robot. That slide also includes the comparison between computed and trajectory of the robot.
Are the trajectories joint angles?
Yeah, that's all joint angles. The joint angles and that's the positions of the robot. And it could be really, in most of the cases, the robot could be tracked or could be against the robot. And we also get, lots of other information like angular momentum. We also essentially evaluated all the stability criteria, and then also could determine why the robot failed at the end. Actually, for a reason of time, I cut out the walking part of it of the talk. So similarly, also with optimal control, you can generate nice walking motion. So that's an older research we did in the context of the Kowaibot project. But we also do similar things for the Ream C now. Actually, here it's also an optimized motion and then implemented in form of movement primitives. So it's also a combination of a model-based and a model-free approach. But I think I should come to the second topic, which is the running and jumping motions in athletes with and without amputation. So this, actually I wanted to show that because I presented the very beginnings of that research in Dynamic Walking 2011. We have moved quite far from here. A lot of the work in the recent years was done by my PhD student Anna Emmons. And we did that in collaboration with Mombaur Katja and Johannes Funken from the University of Sports Sciences in Cologne. And motivation of that research is that there is that there are athletes who are doing remarkable things with their running specific prosthesis, but they always run into issues because it is assumed that they might have an advantage over able-bodied athletes, and they are not allowed to compete in regular competitions, which many of them would like to do in order to have a good competition. Since it's really hard to judge that, we thought that model-based analysis could give some insights. So we again came up with models. Essentially, we did two-dimensional and three-dimensional models. We did for running and jumping that essentially shows you the faces. And then we did a really thorough analysis. So here, this research now focuses on unilateral transtibial amputees, and the athlete the data essentially comes from is Matthias Rehm. So who is a very famous long jumper. So yeah, we did the analysis of the motions. Essentially, we solve using optimization. We do motion reconstruction, so taking data of able-bodied athletes and athletes with amputations, and yeah, reconstruct it to reconstruct unmeasured variables. And we could actually analyze it in detail, and we saw that there, as you would expect, there are really huge asymmetries in the motion, and they are of course much higher in the amputee than in the non-amputee. We see that in the kinematics, but also in the joint torques, which already indicates quite a big disadvantage for the amputee, because that has to be compensated. We also see yeah, that the angular momentum control is different, and that also in the angular momentum there are large asymmetries which lead to quite big destabilizations. Then we also wanted to see how well we can just use optimization. Yeah. Okay. How well we can use different objective functions for generating running motions, and what you see here are a number of different running motions for athletes without and with amputations. Same colors or same objective functions, so it's a minimization of torque, minimization of joint power, but also maximization of speed, maximization of step length, and so on. And the gray-white guy is actually the recorded motion, so we can compare it to that. So what we see here is they are all behaving differently. Objective function has a huge impact, but we still can't explain what the real one is. So in order to solve that, yeah, we solve an inverse optimal control problem, which essentially gives you the underlying objective function under recorded motions. And yeah, that just to really show that we are getting closer. So we can essentially identify it's a weighted sum of different objective function, and yeah, here you see a comparison of the identified objective function in both cases and the measured one. Just to briefly show, we also did long jumping. So here you see a comparison of the actually recorded motion, which was only recorded briefly after the takeoff, and then the longer ones are actually optimized ones, which come from a combination of the maximization of jump length, joint torques, and a head stabilization, actually, which are, of course, a bit too optimistic, because it's really optimization, assuming everything goes right, but they, yeah, generate quite realistic motions. Yeah, so the jump optimization, as I said, is a bit too optimistic, but yeah, we can see that in both cases, for the non-amputee and the amputee, there is potential for improvement. So just to give you briefly our vision in that context, so the idea that we have and that we are working towards is to actually have a simulator, because by now we have been comparing different athletes, and there was a quite good amputee athletes and not so good non-amputee athletes. So here the idea would be that for the amputee athletes, in order to prove or to be able to prove that they do not have an advantage, that they can actually produce their digital twin in the simulator, but also produce a digital twin of their non-amputee self, and then compare, have a better comparison and show how they would be moving without amputation. We did that in a preliminary thing. It was only had some of the data that you could get from an athlete, but we did the comparisons for running and also for long jump, and we actually could see that in both cases the amputee would run faster without amputation, and he would also jump further without amputation. So this is preliminary results from this simulator, and we will do that further, taking more data into account. Yeah, but we think already it's a quite nice result. Coming quickly to my summary. Yeah, I think model-based optimization gives many insights, so please don't ignore it despite all the machine learning. Optimization can help humanoids to do challenging motions, and yeah, as you saw in the second part, optimization-based simulator comparing amputee and non-amputee digital twins could really help athletes to actually prove their case. So that is just a little advertisement to submit to Humanoids because it's another next conference.
You have 3 minutes for questions. Good. Go.
Yeah. So I
sorry.
remember this discussion with Rain, and he was not allowed to participate because there were some study like 3 against 2, and they decided he had some advantage. I know Briggeman from Köln, I think he had
He did something on custodials. And actually, the person we are working with is a successor of Bruggemann.
But what was the situation now? Because the conclusion of those guys was that somehow he gets with higher kinetic energy out of the jump than he goes in.
Yeah, I mean, for a long time now, the legal situation was that they had to prove that they did not have an advantage. That, I think, has changed a little bit again, but it's quite unfair. I mean, it's not that, as long as no one has proven that you have one, it's okay. So this is why we think such a simulator could really help. Because, there's only very few at this level, so it's hard to really do something with data.
So I think I agree with you. Optimization is like this, is preferable to RL. But one nice thing about RL is that they'll get a feedback policy and they can get rid of time. And so do you have any ideas on how to get rid of time in an optimal control?
Why do you want to get rid of time?
Because I would expect the person to be driven by state.
But it's not. I think time is crucial. I think you need time. And that's actually we have tried to do for a lot of example problems, we have tried to do a comparison of how well does RL perform in contrast to optimal control. But I mean, half the problems you cannot compare because RL frameworks often cannot treat many lanes, and they also cannot really choose time, which I think is an issue because time is really critical. I mean, here for athletes, it's important how fast they do something. The robot is also important how fast something is done, and it's more challenging and it's faster.
So the deep mind thing that that all this crazy terrain and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I don't think it had time. It just had state.
But for in dynamics, I mean, time.
You guys are not quite talking to each other.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Please
Do
explain.
you want help or you want to drop?
I think Andre was first. Or you want to?
You want a quick sorting out of your problem? Art is saying, in the description of the control, should there be time or not? So you do model predictive control or trajectory optimization, time is explicitly in the control. On the other hand, if you do state-based control, which they get out of reinforcement learning, of course there's time, it's in the dynamics, but the control is represented independent of time, it's just state-based. So that, when he's talking about time, he's only talking about in the description of the controller, not that, of course time is important.
Well, I mean, I'm also arguing with people who say time is not important.
Okay, but he's not saying that. He's saying in the description of the motion of the controller.
No, she didn't answer.
She didn't answer.
She didn't answer that question.
I did not.
Now that we clarified the question.
Okay, so if I think it would be easier,
Well,
I get explicit
so
control.
let's say we wanted to have a control that's a function of state
Yeah.
instead of time, and then basically time will be an outcome from the dynamics. Then do you have any ideas on how to do optimal control in that way?
I think optimal control can be out without time formulated.
Yeah, you can do that. I mean, you can take time out, and you can also have dependencies on states if that's what you want.
Sure, maybe.
I mean, I never wanted that so far, but you
it-
can do that.
It
Yeah.
could be just a matter of what you choose to implement, yeah. So maybe
Yeah.
there's no trick to it.
Yeah, I mean,
we'll-
it's possible if
Right.
that's what you want, but I never was looking for that. So, yeah, I think now Andrea needs to.
Yeah, thank you for this presentation. I think it's evident that there's a benefit of having a carbon fiber spring as a prosthesis. What do you think is the largest disadvantage of such a prosthesis?
Well, why do you think? You're thinking because it's lighter or because it's storing energy?
Well, you can store energy much cheaper than we can do in our muscles. And
Yeah, you
the
can do that,
tendons-
but it's just one spring, you can adjust your muscles.
Yeah,
So-
but I think there is an advantage that you can store energy for.
I mean, there are like, you can have a list
Yeah.
of like, it's lighter and
Right.
you can
Right.
store energy. So I think
Right.
that's the clear advantage, but the question is in which situation,
Yes,
like,
and what-
But
how
you don't
is
have
it,
active
how
power
is it in the
injection,
general?
right?
Yes,
thing?
I wanted to ask her.
Okay, no, but, I mean, okay, so in running, I mean, you have to go through many different phases, so you're not, I mean, I think it's very easy to tune that thing so that it stores optimally stores energy for one particular running
Right,
speed,
right.
which I think they also did for the average running speed, but already accelerating and then, that comes.
Yeah.
So, but in the case of the, but then you cannot adjust, you cannot accelerate, you cannot brake, and you also cannot have the different phases of the long jump that you would need. Then in the case of unilateral amputees, you have the problem that you have that one light leg and the other.
Asymmetry is a
So you have huge asymmetries in the body, and we also see them essentially everywhere in the motion. So I think that's huge, and we also see how that destabilizes. We also see how they have to compensate differently with the upper body. So that's a huge disadvantage.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's a bit less clear for the bilateral ones, but I think the argument with it's not adaptive, that still holds.
Okay, thank you.